She didn't look back when she stepped toward the edge, but the voice that shattered the storm behind her carried a command that made even the wind obey. Don't do it. I need you alive. The rain came in sheets, cold and punishing, turning the cliffside trail into a slick nightmare. Luna Brennan didn't care. Her bare feet navigated the rocks with the precision of someone who'd stopped feeling pain. The Pacific stretched below her, black and frothing, screaming against the jagged coastline like it wanted to swallow the world whole. She understood the feeling. Her dress, gray, soaked through, clinging to her frame, whipped around her legs. She'd stopped shivering an hour ago. Somewhere behind her, back in the town of Cannon Beach, Oregon, her car sat abandoned in a grocery store parking lot, keys still in the ignition. She'd written no note. There was no one left to read it. Emma. The name gutted her, same as it had every day for the last 8 months. Her daughter's face flashed behind her eyes, blonde curls, gap-toothed smile, the way she'd called her mama in that sing-songy voice that made everything okay. Until the day Luna looked away. Just for a second. Just long enough for the car to. She squeezed her eyes shut, forcing the memory back into its cage. Her ex-husband's voice followed it anyway, venomous and sharp. You killed her. You killed our baby. Maybe he was right. The cliff's edge was 3 feet away now. 2. 1. Luna opened her eyes and stared down into the abyss. The ocean roared its invitation. Finally, she whispered. 15 miles inland, Cale Thorne stood in the remains of what used to be his pack's great hall. Now it was a hospice. Wolves lay scattered across cots, their breathing shallow, their eyes glassy with fever. The curse was eating them from the inside out, turning alpha strength into frail mortality. He'd lost 12 this month alone. Cale. His beta, Reese, appeared at his shoulder, face drawn. Mara's asking for you. She doesn't have long. Cale's jaw tightened. Mara was 73, one of the eldest. She'd helped raise him after his parents died. He crossed to her cot and knelt, taking her trembling hand. Alpha, she rasped, her voice like dried leaves. The seer, did she? She gave me a location, Cale said quietly. The coast. She said I'd know her by scent, moon lilies and loss. Mara's lips trembled into something almost like a smile. Then go. Save us, save yourself. Her hand went limp. Cale closed her eyes gently, his chest hollow. He'd been alpha for 9 years, since he was 24 and his mate was murdered by hunters. He'd survived because his pack needed him. But surviving wasn't living. It was just, slower dying. He stood, turning to Reese. Gather the trackers. We leave now. In this storm? Cale's eyes flashed amber, wolf rising to the surface. I don't care if the sky is falling. That woman is the only thing standing between us and extinction. We find her. Tonight. He didn't know, as he shifted and bolted into the rain, that finding her and saving her would mean 2 entirely different things. Or that she'd be seconds from jumping when he arrived. If someone told you they needed you alive, but you'd already decided to let go, would it be enough to make you stay? Drop your thoughts below. The wind screamed. Luna didn't hear it anymore. She heard Emma's laugh instead, the one that used to fill their small apartment in Portland before everything shattered. Before the accident. Before the funeral where she'd stood alone because her ex-husband had made sure everyone knew whose fault it was. Your fault. Your fault. Your fault. She lifted one foot, suspended over nothing. Don't. The voice cracked through the storm like thunder, primal and commanding, and Luna's body froze before her mind could catch up. It wasn't a request. It was an alpha command, laced with something ancient and undeniable that made her knees lock and her breath catch. She turned her head slowly. A man stood 20 feet behind her on the trail, drenched and heaving like he'd run through hell to get there. He was tall, easily 6'4", with dark hair plastered to his sharp-featured face and eyes that glowed amber in the darkness. Not reflected light. Actually glowing. Luna's heart hammered. She should have been afraid. But fear required caring whether you lived or died. Get away from me, she said, voice flat. I can't do that. He took a step forward, hands raised like she was a spooked animal. Maybe she was. His voice was rough, raw with something that sounded like desperation. Please. Step back from the edge. Why? The word came out broken, nearly swallowed by the wind. Why do you care? Because I need you. Luna laughed, bitter, hollow. No, you don't. Nobody does. That's the whole point. You're wrong. Another step. His eyes never left hers, burning with intensity that made her chest ache. I've been searching for you. You're... I'm nothing, Luna cut him off, turning back toward the drop. Her toes curled over the edge, loose rocks tumbling into the void below. I'm a curse. Everyone I love dies or wishes I was dead instead. So I'm doing everyone a favor. Luna. Her name in his mouth stopped her cold. She spun back, eyes wide. How do you know my name? Cale's jaw clenched. He could smell her from here, moon lilies and grief, exactly as the seer had described. But underneath was something else. Desperation. Finality. He'd seen that scent before, on his mate right before the hunters. No. Not again. Not this time. I know a lot of things, he said carefully, taking another step. 10 feet now. I know you lost your daughter 8 months ago. I know you've been carrying blame that isn't yours. I know you came here tonight because you think disappearing will make the pain stop. Luna's face crumbled. Stop. Stop talking. I know you're wrong. His voice gentled, but the command remained underneath, thrumming through each word. Because I need you alive, Luna. My pack, my people, are dying. There's a curse, and you're the only one who can break it. She stared at him, rain streaming down her face, mixing with tears she didn't remember starting. That's insane. I'm not, I can't. You can. He was 5 feet away now, close enough that she could see the desperation carved into every line of his face. Close enough to see he meant it. Please. I'm begging you. Step away from the edge, and I'll explain everything. I don't want to be saved, Luna whispered, the words shattering something in her chest. I don't want to be needed for some mission or prophecy or whatever this is. I want. Her voice broke. What do you want? Cale asked softly. The question demolished her. Because the answer was impossible. I want my daughter back. I want to stop seeing her face every time I close my eyes. I want to stop hearing her scream when the car. She doubled over, a sob wrenching from her throat. Cale moved on instinct. He closed the distance and caught her before she could crumple, his arms wrapping around her trembling frame and pulling her away from the edge. She fought him, weakly, exhaustedly, her fists pounding against his chest. Let me go. Let me go. No. He held her tighter, his voice rough against her ear. I've let too many people go. I'm not letting you fall. Luna collapsed against him, her sobs coming in ragged gasps that tore through the storm. Cale sank to his knees on the muddy ground, holding this broken stranger like she was the most precious thing in the world. Because she was. She was his pack's salvation. But kneeling there, feeling her shatter in his arms, something cracked in his own carefully constructed walls. This wasn't just a prophesied cure. This was a woman drowning in grief that mirrored his own. A woman who'd lost everything, just like he had. I know it hurts, he murmured, barely audible over the rain. I know you think the pain won't ever stop. But it will. I promise you, it will. You can't promise that, Luna choked out against his chest. I can. His hand cradled the back of her head, protective and gentle. Because I've been where you are. I lost someone too. And there were days I wanted to follow her into the dark. But I didn't. And eventually I found reasons to stay. Luna's fingers curled into his soaked shirt, clinging like he was the only solid thing in a collapsing world. I don't have reasons. Then borrow mine, Cale said quietly. Just for tonight. Just until the storm passes. She didn't answer. But she didn't pull away either. They stayed like that, two shattered people kneeling in the mud at the edge of oblivion, until Luna's sobs quieted into exhausted tremors and Cale's arms ached from holding on so tight. When he finally pulled back enough to see her face, her eyes were red-rimmed and hollow, but something in them had shifted. Not hope. Not yet. But maybe the smallest, most fragile willingness to not jump. Will you come with me? Cale asked. Somewhere dry. Somewhere safe. Luna stared at him for a long moment, this stranger with glowing eyes and impossible promises. She should say no. She should run back to the edge. But her body was so cold. And his arms had been so warm. Okay, she whispered. Cale's truck smelled like pine and leather and something wild Luna couldn't name. She sat rigid in the passenger seat, arms wrapped around herself, staring through the rain-streaked windshield as they wound down the mountain road. Her dress dripped steadily onto the floor mat. She didn't apologize. There's a blanket behind you, Cale said, his voice careful. Measured. Like she was a bomb that might detonate. Maybe she was. Luna didn't reach for the blanket. Where are you taking me? My territory. About 30 minutes inland. He glanced at her, then back at the road. There's a cabin on the outskirts. Private. You can rest, get warm, and then we'll talk. About how I'm supposed to save your pack from some curse. Her voice was flat, mechanical. Yes. Luna laughed, sharp, brittle. This is insane. You're insane. I should've, she stopped herself, jaw clenching. I should've jumped before you got there. Cale's hands tightened on the steering wheel. But you didn't. Only because you tackled me. I didn't tackle you. I caught you. Same thing. It's not. His voice hardened slightly, alpha bleeding through. One implies force. The other implies I gave a damn whether you shattered. The words hung between them, heavy and loaded. Luna turned to look at him fully for the first time since getting in the truck. In the dashboard's dim light, she could see the sharp cut of his jaw, the exhaustion bruised beneath his eyes, the way his shoulders carried weight that had nothing to do with muscle. Why? She asked quietly. Why do you care if some random woman you've never met lives or dies? Cale was silent for a long moment. The windshield wipers beat a steady rhythm, the only sound besides the engine's rumble and the rain's assault. Because I've stood where you stood, he finally said. And nobody caught me. I had to claw my way back alone. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone. Something in Luna's chest twisted. She looked away, back to the rain. I didn't ask to be saved. Most people who need saving don't. Stop acting like you know me. I don't. Cale's voice gentled again. But I know grief. I know what it looks like when someone's been hollowed out by loss. And I know, he stopped, jaw working like the words were fighting him. I know what it's like to be told something's your fault when the only crime you committed was loving someone. Luna's breath hitched. She dug her nails into her palms, using pain to anchor herself. You don't know anything about what happened to my daughter. You're right. I don't. He took the next turn, the truck's headlights cutting through the darkness. But I know you didn't kill her. Whatever happened, it was an accident. Accidents aren't the same as blame. Tell that to my ex-husband, Luna said bitterly. Tell that to everyone who looked at me at the funeral like I was a monster. They were wrong. You don't know that. Yes, I do. The certainty in his voice made her look at him again. His eyes met hers briefly before returning to the road, and in that moment she saw something raw and honest. Because monsters don't stand at cliff edges wishing they could undo the past. Monsters don't care enough to hurt like you're hurting. Luna's throat closed. She turned away, pressing her forehead against the cold window. I don't want to do this. Whatever this is, this curse-breaking prophecy thing, I can't. I can barely get out of bed most days. I can't save anyone. I couldn't even save Luna. Cale's hand moved toward hers on the seat, then stopped halfway, hovering. He pulled it back. I'm not asking you to save anyone tonight. I'm asking you to sleep somewhere warm and dry. That's it. Everything else can wait until morning. And if I say no? If I ask you to take me back to that cliff? His jaw set, a muscle ticking. Then I'd tell you no. Luna's eyes flashed. You can't keep me prisoner. I'm not keeping you prisoner. I'm keeping you alive. His voice roughened with something fierce and protective that made her skin prickle. And before you accuse me of being a controlling bastard, you're right. I am. Because 37 members of my pack are dying, and you're the only chance they have. So yes, I'm going to be selfish. I'm going to make sure you survive long enough to hear what I have to say. And then? He stopped, exhaling hard. Then what? Luna challenged. Then you can choose. The words sounded like they cost him. You can choose to help or not. You can choose to stay or leave. But you have to choose while you're alive, Luna. You don't get to choose from the bottom of the ocean. Silence stretched between them, taut and trembling. Luna wanted to rage at him. Wanted to scream that he had no right to take her choice away. But underneath the anger was something else. Something small and terrified and achingly desperate. Someone fought for me to stay. The thought made her eyes burn. She blinked rapidly, refusing to cry again. I don't believe in prophecies. Neither did I, Cale admitted. Until my seer described you perfectly, down to the scar on your left wrist from the time you tried. He stopped. Luna's hand flew to her wrist instinctively, to the thin white line she usually kept hidden. Her eyes widened. How? I told you. I know things. His voice was quiet now, almost sad. And I know that tonight wasn't your first time standing at an edge. But I'm asking you, begging you, to let it be your last. The truck pulled off the main road onto a gravel drive, headlights illuminating a small wooden cabin nestled among towering Douglas firs. Warm light glowed in the windows. Cale put the truck in park and turned to face her fully. One night, he said. Give me one night to explain. And if you still want to leave in the morning, if you still want to. He couldn't finish. Then I won't stop you. Luna stared at the cabin, at the promise of warmth and dryness and a few more hours of existing in a world that had taken everything from her. She should say no. She should run. But her hand was already reaching for the door handle. One night, she whispered. That's all. The cabin was smaller than Luna expected. One room, mostly, kitchen bleeding into living area, a stone fireplace already crackling with fresh-fed flames, and a single door that presumably led to a bedroom. It was rustic but clean, lived in but not cluttered. Cale moved to the fireplace immediately, grabbing a stack of towels from a wooden chest. Bathrooms through there. Hot water should work. I'll make coffee. Luna took the towels mechanically, her body moving on autopilot while her mind screamed that she shouldn't be here. That she should have fought harder. That every minute she stayed was another minute of postponing the inevitable. But the warmth from the fire felt so good against her frozen skin. She locked herself in the tiny bathroom and stood under water hot enough to burn, watching the steam rise and wishing it could carry her away with it. When her fingers finally pruned and the water started running cold, she dried off and stared at the clothes folded on the counter, a too large flannel shirt and sweatpants. His clothes. They smelled like him, like pine and something earthy and masculine. She dressed quickly, avoiding the mirror. She knew what she'd see, hollowed eyes, sharp cheekbones from months of barely eating, the ghost of someone who used to laugh. When she emerged, Cale was at the stove, stirring something in a pot. He'd changed too, his wet clothes replaced by dry jeans and a dark Henley that stretched across broad shoulders. His hair was still damp, pushed back from his face. He looked over his shoulder. Soup. Nothing fancy, but it's warm. I'm not hungry. When's the last time you ate? Luna's silence was answer enough. Cale ladled soup into 2 bowls and carried them to the small table by the window. Sit. It wasn't a request. That alpha command threaded through again, subtle but undeniable, and Luna found herself sitting before she'd consciously decided to. She glared at him. Stop doing that. Doing what? He sat across from her, sliding a bowl closer. That voice thing. That command. Cale paused, spoon halfway to his mouth. Then he set it down carefully. I'm sorry. It's instinct when I'm worried. I'll try to control it. Worried about your cure dying before you can use her, you mean? His eyes flashed amber for half a second. That's not, he stopped, jaw clenching. Eat. Please. No command. Just a request. Luna stared at the soup, chicken, vegetables, steam rising in gentle curls. Her stomach, traitor that it was, growled. She picked up the spoon. The first bite was heaven and agony all at once. She hadn't realized how hungry she was, how empty. She ate mechanically, not tasting, just filling the void. Cale watched her carefully. When she'd finished half the bowl, he finally spoke. The curse started 18 months ago, he said quietly. A witch, one my father wronged decades ago, cast it with her dying breath. Every member of my pack, bound by blood oath, started getting sick. Weakness. Fever. Deterioration. We've tried everything. Healers, other witches, shamans. Nothing works. Luna set her spoon down. And I'm supposed to fix it how, exactly? The seer said a woman carrying moon lily scent and a grief-broken heart would be the key. That her blood, freely given, could break the bond. He met her eyes. That's you, Luna. You're the only one who matches. Blood. Luna's laugh was hollow. Of course. It's always blood, isn't it? She stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Rain still hammered against the glass. So what, you want me to slice my wrist open over some ritual bowl and chant in Latin? No. Cale stood too, but kept his distance. It's not that simple. The seer said the blood has to be given willingly, with full knowledge and connection. It requires. He stopped. Requires what? Luna turned to face him. A bond. The words came reluctantly. Between you and the Alpha. Between you and me. Something in Luna's chest tightened. What kind of bond? Cale ran a hand through his hair, looking uncomfortable for the first time since she'd met him. I don't know exactly. She was cryptic. But she said you'd have to trust me completely. That the magic wouldn't work if there was doubt between us. Trust. Luna laughed bitterly. I don't even know you. I know. And you expect me to just, what? Bond with you? Trust you? Save your entire pack because some witch had a vision? Her voice rose, cracking. I can't even save myself, Cale. I couldn't save my daughter. What makes you think I can save anyone? Because you're still here. Cale's voice rose to match hers, rough with emotion. Because you got in my truck instead of fighting me. Because you're standing here arguing with me instead of giving up. That takes strength, Luna. More strength than you know. I'm not strong. Tears burned her eyes again. I'm broken. So am I. The admission came quietly, but it hit like a shockwave. Cale took a step closer. My mate, her name was Iris. Hunters killed her 3 years ago while I was away on pack business. She died thinking I'd abandoned her. And I spent every day since then wishing I'd died instead. Luna's breath caught. I know what it's like to be broken, Cale continued, his voice raw. I know what it's like to wake up and have to convince yourself to take the next breath. I know what it's like to be so angry at the universe for letting you survive when everyone you loved didn't. So don't tell me you're too broken to be here, Luna. Broken doesn't mean worthless. The words cracked something open in her chest. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold the pieces together. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Neither do I. Cale's voice gentled. But we have time. The storm. A massive crack of thunder shook the cabin, and the lights flickered once, twice, then died completely. The fire provided the only light now, casting dancing shadows across the walls. Cale cursed softly, moving to the window. The road's going to wash out in this. We're stuck here until it passes. Luna's heart hammered. Stuck. With a stranger. With someone who needed her. With someone who saw her. How long? She asked. Cale's jaw tightened. Could be days. The storm raged for hours. Luna sat by the fire, knees drawn to her chest, watching flames devour wood while Cale moved through the cabin lighting candles. The power was still out, and the darkness beyond the windows felt absolute. There's only one bed, Cale said finally, breaking the silence. You take it. I'll stay out here. I won't sleep anyway. Luna. I haven't slept through the night in 8 months. Her voice was matter-of-fact, hollow. Every time I close my eyes, I see it. The intersection. The other car running the red light. Emma in her car seat, singing that stupid song from her favorite cartoon. And then? She stopped, jaw clenching so hard it ached. Cale lowered himself to the floor beside her, keeping a respectful distance but close enough that she could feel his warmth. Tell me about her. Luna's eyes burned. Why? Because I want to know who she was. Not how she died. Who she was. The question undid something in Luna. Her voice came out broken, barely a whisper. She was everything. Smart and funny and so full of life it hurt to watch sometimes. She'd make up songs about everything, brushing teeth, putting on shoes, eating breakfast. Everything was an adventure to her. A tear slipped down her cheek. She wanted to be a veterinarian. She was 5 years old and already so sure. We'd go to the park and she'd try to rescue every injured bird, every lost dog. She had the biggest heart. She sounds incredible, Kale said softly. She was. Luna's voice cracked. And I was supposed to protect her. That was my one job, keep her safe. And I failed. I looked away for 2 seconds to change the radio station, and when I looked back up, the sob tore out of her. Kale didn't touch her, but his presence was steady, solid, an anchor in her drowning. My ex-husband, David, he said I might as well have killed her myself. That if I'd been paying attention, I could have swerved, could have done something. And he's right. Maybe I could have. Maybe if I'd been faster, better, more. Stop. Kale's voice was gentle but firm. A car ran a red light. That driver killed your daughter. Not you. You were a mother in a car with your child. You weren't supposed to predict the unpredictable. Everyone blamed me, Luna whispered. His family. Our friends. They all looked at me like I was poison. Like I didn't deserve to grieve because it was my fault she was gone. They were wrong. Kale's hand moved slowly, telegraphing the movement before his fingers brushed hers. And your ex-husband was wrong. He needed someone to blame because the truth, that it was random and unfair and no one's fault, was too unbearable. Luna looked at him, really looked at him. You said you lost someone. Your mate. Kale's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Iris. We were bonded for 2 years. She was, his voice roughened. She was light. That's the only way I can describe her. She made everything better just by existing. What happened? Hunters. The word came out harsh. There's a group, radical extremists who think all shifters should be exterminated. They tracked our pack, waited until I left on a supply run to the city. They attacked while I was gone. His hand closed into a fist. They killed 12 pack members. Iris fought, God, she fought so hard, but she wasn't a warrior. She was a healer. By the time I got back, she was. He stopped, breathing hard. She died in my arms, he continued, voice raw. And her last words were, where were you? Not angry. Just, confused. Like she couldn't understand why I hadn't saved her. And I've lived with that question every day since. Where was I? Why wasn't I there? Luna's chest ached. It wasn't your fault. Wasn't it? Kale's eyes met hers, and she saw the same guilt she carried reflected back at her. I was alpha. Protecting the pack was my responsibility. I should have had better security, should have anticipated the threat, should have predicted the unpredictable? Luna echoed his words back to him. The irony hung between them, heavy and profound. Kale's laugh was bitter. Touché. We're both idiots, Luna said quietly. Carrying blame that isn't ours. Knowing that and believing it are different things. Yeah. She looked back at the fire. They really are. Silence settled, but it was different now. Less sharp. More, shared. Can I ask you something? Luna said. Anything. This prophecy, this bond that's supposed to form between us. What if it doesn't work? What if I'm not actually the person your seer saw? Kale was quiet for a long moment. Then my pack dies. And I'll have failed them the same way I failed Iris. The weight in his voice made Luna's throat tight. That's a lot of pressure to put on a stranger. I know. He turned to look at her. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I pulled you off that cliff for selfish reasons. I'm sorry I'm asking you to carry weight you didn't ask for. But I'm not sorry you're alive, Luna. Even if the prophecy is wrong, even if you can't help us, I'm not sorry I kept you breathing. Something in his eyes made her breath catch. Not pity. Not even need. Something that looked almost like care. I don't know how to be needed, Luna admitted. I don't know how to matter to someone again. Then we'll figure it out together. Kale's hand covered hers fully now, warm and steady. Because I don't know how to ask for help. I don't know how to be anything but strong. But maybe two broken people make one functional person? Luna offered, the ghost of a smile touching her lips. Something like that. Outside, thunder rolled. But inside, by the fire, something fragile and new began to take root. Have you ever met someone whose brokenness matched yours perfectly? Someone who understood your pain without you having to explain? Tell us about it below. Luna woke to the smell of coffee and something sweet. For a moment, disoriented in the pre-dawn gray, she forgot where she was. Then it came rushing back, the cliff, Kale, the storm, the cabin. She'd fallen asleep by the fire. Somehow, at some point in the night, she'd simply drifted off. For the first time in months. A blanket was draped over her shoulders, soft, warm, smelling like pine. Kale's blanket. She sat up slowly, every muscle aching from sleeping on the floor. Kale stood at the stove, his back to her, flipping something in a pan. The storm had quieted to a steady rain, and weak morning light filtered through the windows. You snore, Kale said without turning around. Luna blinked. I do not. You absolutely do. Like a tiny chainsaw. There was amusement in his voice, and something about it, the normalcy of it, the teasing, made her chest feel strange. I don't snore, she insisted, standing and wrapping the blanket tighter. I've never snored in my life. Kale turned, a rare smile playing at his lips. It transformed his face, softening the hard edges and making him look younger. If it helps you sleep, you can keep believing that. Luna found herself almost smiling back. Almost. What are you making? Pancakes. Well, attempting pancakes. I'm better at hunting than cooking. He slid a slightly misshapen pancake onto a plate. But you need to eat, and soup for breakfast felt depressing. She moved to the table, eyeing the pancake. It was lopsided and a bit burnt on one edge, but the gesture made something warm unfurl in her chest. When's the last time you slept? I don't need much sleep. That's not an answer. Kale brought the plate over, along with syrup and butter, and sat across from her. I slept some. Kept the fire going. Made sure the roof wasn't leaking. He paused. Made sure you were still breathing. The admission was quiet, vulnerable. Luna's throat tightened. I'm not going anywhere. Not while the road's washed out anyway. Good. His eyes held hers. That's good. They ate in comfortable silence, and Luna was surprised to find the pancake wasn't terrible. A little burnt, a little dense, but warm and sweet and exactly what she needed. Tell me about your pack, she said finally. Not the dying part. The living part. What are they like? Kale's expression softened. They're family. Chaotic, argumentative, fierce family. There's Reese, my beta. He's been my best friend since we were kids. Then there's old Martha who runs the kitchen and makes the best pie you've ever tasted. She's convinced I'm too skinny. He smiled slightly. There's the twins, Sage and Storm, who are constantly in trouble for something. And little Milo who just presented as alpha last year and keeps challenging me to sparring matches he can't win. Sounds like you love them, Luna said softly. I do. The words were simple, but weighted with everything. They're why I keep going. Why I can't give up, even when. He stopped. Even when you want to, Luna finished. Yeah. She pushed her plate away, something shifting in her chest. I had a life before Emma. I know it doesn't feel like it anymore, but I did. I was a graphic designer. I loved hiking in terrible reality TV and trying new recipes that never turned out right. Her voice grew quieter. I had dreams. I wanted to travel, maybe open my own design studio, teach Emma to paint. And then after the accident, it all just disappeared. Like none of it mattered anymore. Like I didn't matter anymore without her. Kale reached across the table, his hand covering hers. You still matter, Luna. Those dreams, they're still yours. Emma wouldn't want you to bury them with her. Tears pricked her eyes. How do you know what she'd want? Because you said she had the biggest heart. His thumb traced gentle circles on her hand. Kids with big hearts want their parents to be happy. Even when they're gone. The tears spilled over. But for the first time, they didn't feel like drowning. They felt like release. I'm scared, Luna whispered. I'm scared to want to live again. Because what if I fail? What if I let everyone down again? Then you fail. Kale's voice was fierce and gentle all at once. And you get back up. That's what living is, Luna. It's falling and getting back up. Over and over until you learn to stand steady. I don't know if I remember how. Then I'll teach you. He squeezed her hand. And you'll teach me how to ask for help instead of carrying everything alone. Deal? Luna looked at their joined hands, at this man who'd been a stranger 24 hours ago and somehow felt like the only person who understood. You're not what I expected when you showed up at that cliff. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone cold. Clinical. Someone who just saw me as a means to an end. And now? She met his eyes, those amber eyes that had glowed in the darkness, and commanded her to stay. Now I see someone who's just as broken and just as scared. And somehow that makes it easier. Easier to stay? Luna's breath caught. The question hung between them, loaded with possibility and fear and something fragile that felt almost like hope. Yeah, she said finally. Easier to stay. Kale's smile was small but genuine, and it reached his eyes for the first time. Good. Because I make terrible pancakes, but I'm told I'm decent company once you get past the growling and alpha posturing. Luna surprised herself by laughing, a small, rusty sound, but real. The bar is pretty low right now, so you might actually have a shot. I'll take it. Outside, the rain continued its steady rhythm. But inside, two broken people sat at a table sharing burnt pancakes and fragile smiles, and for the first time in a long time, neither of them felt quite so alone. The second day in the cabin felt almost normal. They talked. They laughed, small, careful laughs, but real ones. Kale taught Luna how to start a fire properly, and she showed him pictures of Emma on her water-damaged phone, stories spilling out between tears and smiles. By the third day, the storm had finally broken. Sunlight streamed through the windows, painting everything gold. Luna stood on the porch, breathing in clean air, and for the first time in 8 months, she thought, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can live. That's when Reese arrived. The beta appeared through the tree line, his face grim and urgent. Luna felt Kale tense beside her instantly, his whole body going rigid with alpha alertness. Reese. What's wrong? We lost 6 more. Reese's voice was rough with exhaustion and grief. Martha. The twins. Little Milo, his voice cracked. They're dying faster now, Kale. We're running out of time. Luna watched the devastation wash over Kale's face, watched him crumble and rebuild himself in seconds. How long? Days. Maybe a week for the strongest. Reese's eyes flicked to Luna, assessing, then back to Kale. Is she? She's agreed to listen, Kale said carefully. We've been talking. Talking? Reese's voice sharpened. Kale, our people are dying. We don't have time for talking. The ritual needs to happen now. Luna's stomach dropped. Ritual? Kale turned to her, and something in his expression, guilt, desperation, made her take a step back. I was going to explain, he started. I was waiting for the right time. What ritual? Luna's voice rose. You said it was just blood freely given. You said. The blood ritual requires a bonding ceremony, Reese interrupted, impatient. A mate bond. It's the only way the magic works. The seer was clear, the alpha and the cure must be bonded, heart to heart, or the blood is worthless. The world tilted. Luna stared at Kale, betrayal burning through her chest. A mate bond. You want me to bond with you, to become your mate, and you didn't think to mention that? Luna, let me explain. How long have you known? Her voice shook. Since the cliff? Since you pulled me back? Kale's silence was answer enough. Oh my God. Luna laughed bitterly, backing toward the door. This whole time. The pancakes, the stories, the understanding, it was all just manipulation. You were just softening me up so I'd agree to bind myself to you forever. It wasn't like that, Kale said, moving toward her. At first, yes, I needed you for the pack. But Luna, the last 3 days were a lie. The words came out broken. You made me feel, she stopped, pressing her hands to her face. You made me feel like I mattered. Like you saw me as a person, not just a cure. But that's all I ever was to you, wasn't it? A means to an end. That's not true. Cale's voice was desperate now. You do matter. These 3 days, they've been real. Everything I said, everything I felt. Cale. Reese's voice cut through. I know this is hard, but we genuinely don't have time. The pack is dying. She needs to agree to the bond now, or... Shut up, Reese, Cale snarled, his eyes never leaving Luna's. Luna, please. Let me explain properly. Explain what? Luna's tears were angry now, hot and furious. Explain how you found a suicidal woman and thought, perfect, she's vulnerable enough to manipulate? Explain how you made me think I could trust again, could feel again, and it was all just. Her voice broke. I trusted you, she whispered. I told you about Emma. I told you things I haven't told anyone. And you were just playing a role this whole time. I wasn't playing anything, Cale said fiercely. Yes, I should have told you about the mate bond sooner. Yes, I was scared you'd run if you knew the full truth. But everything else, every word, every moment, that was real, Luna. I swear to you. I don't believe you. The words felt like glass in her throat. How can I? You've been lying since the moment we met. I saved your life. You stole my choice. Luna shouted back. You pulled me off that cliff for yourself, not for me. You kept me here, kept me hoping, kept me, she pressed her fist to her chest. You made me want to live again just so you could use me. That's not. Cale, the pack, Reese interjected. We need an answer. Cale whirled on his beta. Get out. What? I said get out. Now. Before I make you. Reese stared at him, shocked, then looked at Luna. You'd let them all die? For pride? For. Go, Cale growled, eyes flashing full alpha gold. Tell them I'll be back when I'm back. Reese left, but the damage was done. Luna was already grabbing her still damp clothes from where they'd been hanging by the fire. I need to leave. Luna, please. No. She spun to face him, tears streaming. You said if I wanted to leave, you wouldn't stop me. So don't. I was right the first time. I'm not meant to save anyone. I'm not meant to matter. I should have jumped when I had the chance. The words hit Cale like a physical blow. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. Luna's voice was hollow now, all the fight draining out. I can't save your pack, Cale. I can't even save myself. I'm broken and useless and I should have. Stop. Cale's voice cracked. Please stop. But Luna was already walking out the door, into the sunlight, away from the cabin and the warmth and the first person who'd made her feel human in 8 months. Cale stood in the doorway, watching her go, torn between his pack and this woman who'd become everything in 3 days. And for the first time in 9 years as Alpha, he didn't know which to choose. Cale didn't follow her. That was the first thing Luna noticed as she stumbled down the gravel road, her breath coming in ragged gasps. He'd let her go. Just like everyone else eventually did. The sun was too bright, the air too clean. Everything felt wrong, her borrowed clothes, her bare feet on the rough road, the way her chest ached with something that felt dangerously close to heartbreak. You can't be heartbroken over someone you've known 3 days, she told herself. That's not how it works. But her heart didn't seem to care about logic. She made it maybe half a mile before she had to stop, pressing her hand against a tree trunk, trying to catch her breath. Where was she even going? She had no car, no money, no phone that worked. She was miles from civilization, wearing a stranger's clothes, and she'd been ready to die 3 days ago. The realization hit her like cold water. 3 days ago, she'd been standing on a cliff, ready to let go. Now she was running away from the first person who'd made her want to stay. What did that mean? Luna sank to the ground, her back against the tree, and let herself cry. Not the hollow, empty tears from before. These were angry, confused, grief-stricken tears that came from somewhere deep and raw. She'd trusted him. God help her, she'd actually started to trust him. Back at the cabin, Cale stood frozen in the doorway, his wolf howling inside him to chase her, to bring her back, to fix this. But his alpha training kept him rooted. Let her choose. Let her choose. Reese appeared from the tree line again, his expression carefully neutral. You let her go. Yes. The pack is dying. I know. Kale. What do you want me to do, Reese? Kale's voice was raw. Force her? Command her? She's not pack. The alpha command doesn't work the same way. And even if it did, he stopped, jaw clenching. I won't take her choice away again. I won't. Reese was quiet for a long moment. Then, softer, you care about her. It wasn't a question. Kale's hands curled into fists. She was ready to die. Do you understand that? She'd given up completely. And in 3 days, I watched her come back to life. I watched her laugh, watched her hope, watched her start to heal. And I. His voice cracked. I fell in love with her, he finished quietly. Somewhere between the cliff and the pancakes and the stories about her daughter. I fell completely in love with her. And now she thinks it was all manipulation. Was it? Reese asked gently. At first? Kale's laugh was bitter. Maybe. I don't know anymore. I needed her for the pack, that was true. But somewhere along the way, she stopped being the cure and started being Luna. The woman who snores like a chainsaw and can't cook worth a damn. The woman who loved her daughter so fiercely she couldn't forgive herself for losing her. The woman who's stronger than she knows and braver than she believes. So what are you going to do? Kale looked down the empty road where Luna had disappeared. Let her choose. And if she chooses to leave? To go back to that cliff? The question made Kale's chest feel like it was caving in. Then I follow her. Not to stop her. Not to save her for the pack. But because I can't, he stopped, breathing hard. I can't let her die alone thinking no one loved her. Even if she hates me. Even if she never wants to see me again. She deserves to know someone chose her. Not for what she could do. Just for who she is. Reese put a hand on his alpha's shoulder. The pack will understand. Will they? Kale's voice was hollow. When they're dying and I'm choosing one woman over all of them? You're choosing love over obligation, Reese said quietly. That's not weakness, Kale. That's what makes you worth following. Luna didn't know how long she sat there. The sun climbed higher, warming her skin, and she found herself thinking about Emma. Really thinking about her, not just the accident. She remembered the way Emma used to wake her up by singing directly into her ear. The way she'd insist on wearing her fairy wings to the grocery store. The way she'd say, I love you to the moon and back and to the moon again every single night before bed. Emma had loved life. Fiercely, completely, without reservation. And Luna had loved watching her live it. What would Emma want? The question whispered through her mind. If she could see you now, what would she want? The answer came quietly, but certain, she'd want you to be happy, Mama. Luna pressed her hands to her face, fresh tears coming. I don't know how, baby, she whispered to the empty air. I don't know how to be happy without you. But even as she said it, she remembered Kale's words, those dreams, they're still yours. Emma wouldn't want you to bury them with her. And she remembered the way he'd held her when she cried. The way he'd made terrible pancakes just to make her smile. The way he'd looked at her like she mattered, not because of what she could give him, but because of who she was. Had that all been manipulation? Or had she run because it was easier to believe a lie than to risk the truth? Luna stood slowly, brushing dirt from her borrowed sweatpants. Her feet started moving before her mind caught up, carrying her back up the road toward the cabin. She didn't know what she'd say when she got there. Didn't know if she could forgive him for the lie of omission. Didn't know if she was strong enough to bond her life to a stranger's for a pack she'd never met. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She wanted to choose. Not to die. Not to disappear. But to actually choose what happened next. And maybe, just maybe, that was the first step toward living again. Kale was sitting on the porch steps when Luna came back into view. His head was in his hands, shoulders curved inward like he was trying to hold himself together. He looked up when he heard her footsteps, and the raw hope that flashed across his face nearly broke her. He stood slowly, like she was a wild animal that might bolt. Luna. Don't. She held up a hand, stopping him from coming closer. Let me talk first. Please. Cale nodded, his jaw tight. Luna took a breath, steadying herself. You lied to me. Or at least, you didn't tell me the whole truth. And that hurt. It hurt because I thought, her voice wavered. I thought maybe I'd finally found someone who saw me as more than broken. More than useful. Just, me. I do see you, Cale said hoarsely. Luna, I'm not finished. She stepped closer, her hands trembling. But I also ran because it was easier to believe you were using me than to accept that maybe you actually cared. Because if you cared, that meant I had to care back. And caring means risk. It means I could lose again. And I don't know if I'm strong enough for that. You are, Cale said softly. You're the strongest person I've ever met. Luna's eyes burned with tears. I came back because Emma wouldn't want me to run. She wouldn't want me to give up on the possibility of something good just because I'm scared. And because. She paused, her heart hammering. Because these 3 days with you were the first time since she died that I felt like a person instead of a ghost. And maybe you should have told me about the mate bond sooner. But I also understand why you didn't. You were desperate. Your pack is dying. And I. Her voice broke. I know what it's like to be desperate enough to do anything. Cale's eyes shone with emotion. I'm sorry. I should have trusted you with the truth from the beginning. I should have. Tell me now, Luna interrupted. Tell me everything about the mate bond. What it means. What it requires. No more secrets. Cale nodded, running a hand through his hair. The mate bond is permanent. It's a soul-deep connection that ties two people together, their emotions, their life forces, their hearts. You'd feel what I feel. I'd feel what you feel. And the ritual to create it requires blood, yes, but also consent. True, willing consent from both parties. You'd have to want it, Luna. Want me. Not just to save the pack, but because you choose it. And if I say no, she asked quietly. If I can't do it? Cale's face was raw with honesty. Then the pack dies. And I'll spend whatever time they have left making them comfortable. And then I'll help you get wherever you want to go, and I'll never ask anything of you again. You'd let them die? Yes. The word was firm, unwavering. Because I won't force you into a bond you don't want. I won't steal your choice, Luna. Not again. Not ever again. Luna stared at him, at this alpha king who'd been willing to do anything to save his pack, except the one thing that would destroy her autonomy. And something inside her shifted, clicking into place like a key in a lock. What if I want to, she whispered. Cale went very still. What? What if I want the bond? Luna stepped closer, closing the distance between them. Not just to save your pack, though I do want to save them. But because in 3 days, you made me feel alive again. You made me laugh. You made me hope. And maybe that started as manipulation, but somewhere along the way, it became real. For both of us. Luna. Her name was a prayer on his lips. I'm still broken, she said, tears streaming now. I'm still grieving Emma, and I probably always will be. I'm still scared and angry and lost. But maybe. She reached up, touching his face gently. Maybe I don't have to be alone while I heal. Maybe I can choose to stay. Not because someone commanded me to, but because I want to. Cale caught her hand, pressing it against his cheek. Are you sure? Once the bond is formed. I'm sure. Luna's voice was steady, certain. I'm choosing this, Cale. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing life. For me. For your pack. For us. The kiss happened before either of them could think, desperate and gentle and tasting of salt and second chances. When they pulled apart, both were crying. The ritual, Cale murmured against her forehead. We need to do it now. Before. Then let's do it. The ritual was simpler than Luna expected. They stood in the cabin, hands joined, while Cale spoke ancient words in a language she didn't understand. When he drew the silver blade across his palm, then offered it to her, she didn't hesitate. The moment their blood touched, mingling, binding, Luna gasped. She felt him. Not just his presence, but his soul. His grief over Iris. His love for his pack. His desperate, fierce, overwhelming love for her. And he felt her. Her pain. Her loss. Her slow, fragile healing. Her choice. The bond snapped into place like coming home. 2 weeks later, Luna stood on the same cliff where Cale had found her. But this time, she wasn't alone. His arm was wrapped around her waist, solid and warm, and through the bond, she could feel his contentment, his peace, his love. "You saved them," he murmured. 31 lives, Luna. "Because of you." "Because of us," she corrected softly. Then, echoing that first night, "You told me you needed me alive." "I did." Cale turned her to face him, his eyes warm. "And I meant it. But now I choose to stay alive," Luna finished. "Not for you. Not for the pack. For me." "For us," Cale echoed, and kissed her as the ocean roared its approval below. Have you ever made a choice that scared you but saved you? A moment where you chose hope over fear, life over endings? Share your story, we'd love to hear it.